coming to you live here from Qinghai-hu, right in the middle of Lake Qing here, off the coast of Hebei in China. We're here today with the first of our qualifiers of HomeStory Cup, not say at HomeStory Cup, but Home Story Cup. Without the number 21, we are kicking it off, obviously, with the China region qualifiers. I'm your host Yaku of Zaku, and with me today is La Escena Imo que toca a Queen. Light. Yeah, we doing, Light?
What's up, Yaku? Yes, welcome everyone. Welcome to the very first qualifier for HomeStory Cup. We're going back home. No longer are we staying at home. I'm not entirely sure as to the venue.
We're going back to the motherland.
Going back to the motherland. I think it is dubbed
Starfield.
the Lost Islands, by the way. HomeStory Cup 21 Lost Islands. So I wonder what that entails.
It's Jurassic Park.
Oh my god.
World.
But yes, we are going to be covering as many qualifiers as we can. We probably will not be covering the European qualifiers because we do have to sleep, but every other one, we will do our best.
Yeah, I wish we didn't, but we do have to sleep.
Like, I wish we did do our best. You're like, I wish we could sleep a little bit more.
Yeah. But regardless, we are going to be starting, of course, with a bit of a PvZ. Over here in the bottom right-hand corner map, starting all the way in the bottom right-hand corner of Pride of Altaris, we have a bit of a newcomer, in at least in this channel. He is coming out from the land of China, and teamless. Well, actually, that's a clan, but I'm not going to try to read that clan name. Allegedly known as Rinka. I forgot what I translated earlier. But here, known as IsayamaYomi.
And spawning in the top left-hand corner of Pride of Altaris ALE, we have the Chinese Protoss player himself. He is blue, representing, I'm not too sure the team either, but it is StarToSky.
Rintaro Okabe is apparently the challenge name of Isayama here. At least that's what Google Translate is telling me.
Oh god, we all know how accurate Google Translate can be.
Very much so.
Yes. For those wondering, exclamation mark B in the chat if you guys want to have a look at the bracket. The bracket is relatively small, but to kind of get a little bit of your bearings in the bracket, this series leads into someone who everyone should be a little bit more familiar with, and that is Coffee.
Yeah, without a doubt, the most recognizable player from the China region. IMO. Probably the most reputable one as well.
Oh yeah, more so than who's Peinan? Who is that? What are you on about? Like So yes, I think it's pretty interesting to have a gander at the bracket as well. What's important is that in HomeStory Cup there are no invites, so you have to make it through these qualifiers, from my understanding at least. And
there were 2 invites, but they went to literally the finalists of the last one, Cyril and Raynor.
There you go. So Cyril and Raynor are already seeded in. Everyone else has to qualify through their own regions, which means, and there's only one qualifier for this region specifically. So if they aren't in the bracket, that means they're not going to be competing. Well, they can't.
Suck it, time fans.
Oh yeah. That's kind of what I was alluding to. Yes, time will not be taking part here, because unfortunately, there were some issues when it comes to travel for time. Other players are going to put up with those issues, specifically when it comes to quarantining, and being homebound or being hotel bound when trying to return home. So because of all that, that kind of opened things up in this qualifier.
Yeah, I definitely have a couple of favorites in mind here, just looking at the bracket. We don't have some of the big names. Specifically, I'm thinking Time and Cyan, but Coffee is here, Chesha is here, and Jim is here. Anything can happen, but I think it's fair to remind everyone, there is only one slot for this region.
Oh yeah, exactly. Only one slot, so it's going to be brutal for whoever does attempt to qualify, or for all these players, I should say. Another one who is missing is Maxed. Maxed isn't here either.
Maxed, yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of those kind of top tier Chinese players are missing. I say a lot of them, not all of them. You were naming some notable ones like your gyms and like your coffees. So it's still kind of anyone's game here. So that's why I'm a little bit more excited about this, because let's be honest, if Time showed up, it'd be like, all right, well, you know what, he's gonna win.
Yeah, who's going to try to face him in the qualifying match?
Yeah, it'd be a little bit more one note if Time was here, because he's not. Things, you know, can get a little bit more exciting. Things are a little bit more difficult to predict.
Yeah, personally, I am a little bit biased. I would like one of these two players to, you know, these two kind of up-and-coming players to pull off a little bit of an upset here and make everybody question everything that they thought they knew about the Chinese scene. But we'll see. You know, one of these players will have to advance first.
Exactly, and that's huge, because we should also bear in mind that because this is an offline event, the number one place does get a plane ticket, does get accommodations paid for to go to the offline event that is HomeStory Cup.
And it all begins here. Speaking of beginning here, we do have a game on our hands, and yeah, this is shaping up kind of standard. I say kind of standard because that's a bit of an early +1 coming out from StarToSky, and that is a gold base kind of coming out from IsayamaYomi.
Yeah, we were basically just kind of introing like the entire qualifier, but now that we are here, we did see a Stargate opener from StarToSky, and he wasn't able to really achieve much with it. Did go double Oracle, but we can see both Oracles are here. They weren't really able to deal too much economic damage whatsoever. Oh, actually a couple of kills, never mind. So 7, oh my god. A couple of kills in the end to try and kind of keep things in check as he is transitioning into ground toss. Again, a kind of popular style nowadays, going into Blink Stalkers.
Yeah, kind of interesting that he's utilizing these oracles a bit more defensively, but I'm guessing those lings that he scouted early on, that did catch a couple of his scouting units in the middle of the map, kind of made him a little cautious.
Yeah, I was worried that we didn't have WCS game heart, but we do. It was those kills were just links as they were trying to harass across the map, so no major drone damage done yet. So Isayama has done a really good job at defending so far, which again, I'm pretty impressed by, because this is the first time we are casting him, and we were able to catch StarToSky earlier, and we do see that, again, he has correctly identified what is going on, went in, was able to confirm the army, and is going for Lingbane, Roach Ravager.
Yeah, he's pretty much checking all the right boxes right now. His creep is about halfway spread across the map. He does want to play this out a little bit aggressively, which is always a risk when you know your opponent's working on timing, but if he can hit the counter timing, things are going to be shaping up very, very well for him.
Yeah, I'm honestly a little bit surprised, and again, I do apologize for not talking too much about the game, but it has been relatively passive here. You know, the Protoss player has been chilling here at home, hasn't gone for any harassing adepts or anything like that, has just been turtling up back at home. Is pretty well fortified, all things considered, but leaving the Zerg player to just drone up and to work on an army is sometimes a little bit unheard of. Like, it's kind of odd to see, especially because like the creep hasn't been dealt with either. Like Isayama is able to just creep to his heart's content.
The creep hasn't been dealt with. He's saturating that gold base. He's getting his infestation pit before the 8-minute mark. Isayama is going to be able to hit his late game much quicker than StarToSky will. He, on the other hand, you know, StarToSky does have a decent army right now, and he is getting all of his upgrades in check. He needs to hit now, though. He needs to do a lot of damage with this army. Yeah. Before Isayama gets even further.
And the reality is that he can't. Like, his army's just not large enough. He pushes a little bit into creep. He doesn't even clean any of it up. The Revelation actually missed all of the creep tumors except for one in the middle. Wow. So that was a little bit sad to see. And yeah, again, Isayama was just allowed to play out his game. And unfortunately, I feel like the Protoss player wasn't anywhere near as greedy. He's trying to go into double Immortal production, which is a little bit interesting, by the way. Meanwhile, the Baling Water Bite, does not manage to get into the natural base.
He's actually the third.
Oh my god, he's going for the third.
He doesn't really get too many drones over there or workers, but on the flip side, the main army does hit, and it gets a really good position up on the top of this ramp. I do think that the concave is just a little bit too good for StarToSky now, however, even with the transfuses from the Queens on creep.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, unfortunately for Isayama, a lot of the Banelings were kind of wasted, not on the Zealots, but on Archons, on the Immortals as well. They weren't really a part of that main engagement. So we do see StarToSky pushing out across the map, but with 12 Roaches on the way, with the mass Ling reinforcements as well, I don't really see this army doing too much damage, especially, I was about to say without a Warp Prism, but the Prism is on the way.
Yeah, we're starting to see a complete flip in the dynamic right now. IsayamaYomi being the defender at the moment. He's even pulling a couple of the boys, but it's not really working out for him. He's going to give up all of those workers at that gold base.
Exactly.
That was just such an unfortunate timing to hit for IsayamaYomi.
Yeah, like, I honestly believed in Isayama's kind of army here, but again, the Banelings weren't a part of it. Now he's down to the Roaches. He doesn't have enough time to really kind of ramp back up again. He has no momentum whatsoever, and you know who does? StarToSky.
Yeah, he did such a good job. I believe he only lost Zealots and Sentries in the initial engagement. He kept just about every other high-tech unit alive, and he made full use of it. GG is called. StarToSky takes game number 1, but like you said, Light, I'm very impressed by just how quickly IsayamaYomi, otherwise known as Rintaro Okabe, was able to hit all those checkpoints very, very quickly. He was able to macro up and even get away with that gold base for a very long time. It's just unfortunate that he decided to push out when he did.
Yeah, it was a little bit of an anti-timing for our Zerg player. We saw him, again, have his macro unimpeded. You know, he was droning up really happily. He was working on his upgrades. Then he pushed up the ramp, and we've kind of used this phrase before. He kind of like poked the bear. He like pushed up the ramp. He's like, I need to back the hell up. And then the Protoss just chased him all the way back home. And he just wasn't ready. Oh. So with that, that is the first game. Also, it was kind of weird to see especially in the Chinese region, almost like a no rush 9 minutes there, where both players are just doing their own thing. And then finally things popped off and really just escalated very quickly.
Yeah, without a doubt. Very passive for a long time, but then when they actually hit, it went from 0 to 11, had the drop of a hat. And we'll see if that happens again here on a bit of a more standard map. 2000's atmosphere. Ellie, we're of course in the top right-hand corner map, starting all the way. In the top right-hand corner, we have our blue Zerg player this time, coming down from the land of China. He is going to be representing clan...
A clan?
I think that's Ren. The first character. Could be wrong. Oh, maybe it's Wu. I mix them up a lot. He is IsayamaYomi. Ren, not Ren.
And spawning in the bottom left-hand corner of 2000 Atmospheres ALE, we have the Chinese Protoss player himself. He is red in-game, apparently. Shout out to one of our lovely viewers letting us know his name means please don't mind drop me. But goes by the ID StarToSky. It is, I just said his name. It's StarToSky?
Yeah. Well, they definitely won't have to worry about that in this particular PvZ, and I believe that clan tag, it reads I think that's me.
I'm gonna have to
after that, which is
I
love you something.
Shout out to Karaten in the chat. Of course, he has been playing in Duckling Open recently, and he is a native Chinese speaker. So thank you so much for the translations. I would appreciate any others, as we are unfamiliar with what the characters are, and relying off of Yaku's translations usually isn't the best idea.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh God. I appreciate this.
I took Mandarin for 6 years.
And I failed. Every year.
Wait, not just every year, every test.
Oh my God. Yaku, please. No. Oh God. But of course, now that we've introduced the tournament itself, we can talk a little bit more about the players. And yeah, we'll see if our Zerg player changes his approach here, because I like losing a game like the last one we just saw can be sometimes soul crushing.
Yeah, it's like you were doing everything right, and then all of a sudden you lose. I've definitely felt that, and especially in this scenario, I do definitely think that up until he decided to push out, Isayama was doing everything right. He just needs to be more patient with how he plays this out.
Yeah, it's just so unfortunate that like his harassment coincided with his main army push as well. Like I understand he basically tried to go for like a tri-pronged attack, like Banelings into the natural, Banelings into the third, and then you push into the third with your army as well. But because like the run by is kind of fell so flat. Like the push was also crushed, and like everything just so quickly went from bad to worse.
Yeah, it's probably the best way of describing it. Good to bad to I fear for my life.
Yeah, pretty much. We've all been there. We've all, not just you, Yaku. I've been there too. So yeah, we'll see if he's able to again kind of recalibrate here as we get into game number 2. Obviously, our Protoss player already looking quite solid after the first game is opening up once again with an Oracle.
Yeah, it worked real well for him in game number 1, even when he was using it more defensively. I have to imagine it'll work out even better for him if he's actually, you know, able to carry out the drone harass he wanted to without being interrupted by all these lings.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, it's one of those things where, like, if we're real about it, I mean, the Oracles didn't deal any economic damage, you know, they didn't clear up any creep, they...
Yeah.
But they were kept alive.
Oh!
You know, there is definitely that.
I might get a tumor here.
Oh.
It's about to be very hype, but it's not quite to be. No Spore Crawlers in the natural base, but there are 2 queens. The Spore Crawler, actually, not here in the main base. It's in the front of the natural.
Oh my god, already this Oracle doing more damage than what the 2 Oracles did in the last game. And maybe that won't bode well. We'll see. As already the second Oracle is coming out.
Yeah, I'm definitely curious as to why the initial Spore Crawler was repositioned to the middle of the natural in the third, but thankfully Isayama has repositioned it. He's got the queens where they just about need to be, and as such, these Oracles are unable to meet up, and they won't get any more drone kills.
Yeah, exactly. We may see a recall. I mean, this Oracles are pretty speedy boys, but this one here is stuck towards the top right-hand side of the map. Still no spores, by the way, in these bases. Isayama is really relying heavily on these queens, and they can do well, but again, they also require a little bit more control here. Ooh, but he is keeping up with this Oracle, and our Protoss player is switching things up.
Very much so. No Forge in sight. That is the Twilight Council researching not Blink, but Resonating Glaives.
Here we go. So looking to be a much more aggressive player here in the second game. We already have plenty of adepts warped in here at the third base, and he can make use of them as well as warp in another round. Doesn't quite have a gateway explosion, and doesn't look like he wants to stick with Glaive Adept since he is working on a forge for +1. So eventually looking to switch out into something more reasonable like Stalkers.
Yeah. Something more reasonable with a bit more of a backbone, thinking Colossus or Disruptors from that Robo facility, but no, actually, it's gonna be Archons again.
Ooh, yeah, we do have a Templar Archives being thrown down here for our Protoss player. Meanwhile, we do have the Adepts coming across the map. Thankfully, they were spotted by that Ling earlier, so we do see Isayama keeping up here with them. Shade into the third base, but Lings are not too far behind. He commits.
Oh! Yeah, that's a really good choke point to utilize here. Alright, a couple of drones are falling. The Lings just not really able to contest with these Adepts in this choke point. Spore Crawler getting very badly bruised. That bodes pretty well if the Oracle decides to come back.
True.
It's actually being transfused right now, which... I don't know, is it worth it, like, keeping that Spore Crawler alive if you have to use more than one transfuse? That's quite a bit of energy, I know.
I imagine so. I'm going to trust in Isayama's decision there. Meanwhile, we just see a couple of Shades actually attempted into the natural base, but every single time Isayama has been on point with walling up here with this drone. But what's important is that we see our Protoss player didn't overcommit. You know, was relatively passive, did commit to a Shade, and did force a lot of lost mining time, but didn't throw away his Adepts.
He's going to be able to use them defensively in the case of a counterattack, and has a little bit more of a buffer for his more high-tech units, namely the Archons and Immortals. They're not going to do too much against Roaches, but they're a good meat shield.
Oh yeah, they definitely are. And this is all going to get scattered, by the way. He does see the Twilight Council researching. He sees the Templar Archives as well as the Forge. So Isayama can piece together that this should be charged. Archon coming out. Meanwhile, ooh, the Oracles come back up.
Ooh, aw. Very ballsy to throw down a Stasis Ward there, and it gets a couple of drones in the end, but yeah, thankfully for Isayama, our Blue Zerg player, he was taking this seriously. You know, he wasn't banking entirely on the Queen to be able to kill the Oracle. They moved the majority of his drones away.
Yeah, exactly. You know, kind of a tit for tat there for that one Oracle. Quickly checking the vision though, the Spire has not been scattered. And I love the Spire decision here for Isayama, because sure, Archons can be devastating against Mutas, but Zealots not so much, and Archons are relatively slow. So if he's able to get a large enough Muta cloud out, I do think that he can magic box and overwhelm this army. But bearing in mind, the Spire is still not done, just now finishing, and the army of the Protoss is here.
Yeah, it's a relatively small army, and I don't see a War Prism to reinforce this, but it's a very beefy army. 3 Archons have plenty of splash damage on their hands, and the Immortals are pretty much here to clean up everything else. Oh, but a couple of Archons are getting caught out! Okay, terrible getaway.
At the same time, a massive Ling run by with a full surround here on the 4th base, but with the Warping and Zealots, it looks like the Ling run by won't be able to do too much here. Meanwhile...
Yeah, IsayamaYomi, or StarToSky, sorry, turns around on Isayama and is able to get a lot of volleys off. He keeps the majority of his high-tech units alive. In fact, I don't think he's lost a single Archon or Immortal here. And gets a bunch of free roaches for his troubles.
Yeah, I'm legitimately surprised at how much our Protoss player has been able to do here with such a small army. You pointed out earlier, there's no War Prism here. There's no way to easily reinforce this. So what you see is what you get. But despite that, he's so ballsy and so careful with his control. I'm impressed. But he has to be careful not to overextend.
Yeah, he definitely does. I was gonna say, I like that little tactic he had where he almost faked a retreat and immediately turned around once the Roach army was off of creep, but now he's getting pretty deep into creep. A bunch of Archons are looking to meet this. The Biles don't quite land. One of them do, and we're at the point where it almost feels like there are enough Archons to act as their own buffer.
Oh yeah, there's a wall of Archons, man. It's absolutely disgusting to see. The base will go down. Only a handful of workers as Isayama was able to evacuate in time. And ooh, we have to be careful here because StarToSky, your buffer is starting to run dry. A couple of Archons were taken out, and it looks like in the end the Zerg player should be able to force this back. Target fires one of the Archons.
Yeah, not the most efficient trade here from Isayama, but at the same time he's able to take out a lot of these very gas-intensive units. Does that matter in the end, though? Because now StarToSky is turning around with Zealots and a Warp Prism. I think it will, because look at the rest of this army getting surrounded. Warp Prism here to hot pick up just in the nick of time, though.
Exactly. Who needs a Warp Prism to reinforce? He just kept warping it at home, and finally the Prism is here. Because he delayed it by so much, he was able to get a decent amount of Immortals alive or up earlier. He has kept them alive this entire time, only lost one of them, and Yaku, this may just be too much.
This is looking way too much at the moment. GG is called, and StarToSky will be taking that series 2-2. I hit the wrong app here on my phone. 2-0. Very nicely done here.
Yeah, definitely. I'm a little bit shocked because it seems to be a very stylistic thing here for StarToSky, where for both games he pushed out without Prism. Like usually that's kind of what signifies, you know, aggression from the Protoss player, because you get a Prism, you can micro with it, you can warp in, you can reinforce, and then you just go. But yeah, he doesn't really rely on it too much. He has no fear. No fear whatsoever. Yeah, and I'm sure Isayama, upon seeing the army, also like didn't really take it too seriously. Like he sees a handful of Archons, a handful of Immortals, a handful of Zealots. He's like, oh yeah, I'm fine. I can go for these run bys. I don't need my entire army at home. Like everything's gonna be okay. And then it's not.
Yeah. That it definitely was not. I will say I'm definitely very impressed by Isayama here, being able to, like we said, I don't think that he was doing anything particularly wrong in those 2 games, at least when it came to macro, but yeah, StarToSky in terms of macro is at least on par, but I think a very big difference between the two is that Star was very decisive when it came to his pushes, when it came to the actual engagements and whatnot, and that kind of made all the difference here in our PvZ.
It really did. It really did. And yeah, a very dominant showing here so far, at least when it comes to PvZ. But now he goes up against, you know, something that maybe he has a little bit more trouble with.
Well, yeah, if his in-game name is any indication, he's going to be playing a PvT against Coffee, the known by, at least in the Chinese scene, has the nickname of the budget time. And that's not meant to be an insult, honestly. It's meant to be more of a testament to Coffee's own ability.
Yeah, I mean, Coffee, even in the most recent season of DreamHack, did fairly well, you know, making it all the way into the main event for his own region, making it to the playoff bracket as well, out of the group stage. So Coffee is a terrifying player in his own right, and he's really been coming into his own.